With just 11 games to go in the regular season, the Montreal Canadiens travel to Nashville to take on the Predators, kicking off a 5-game road trip with a 4-point cushion on a playoff spot. Montreal is fresh off of 3 straight wins, righting the ship after a sequence in which they lost 3 of 4. Meanwhile, Nashville sits in the final playoff spot in the West, just 1 point up on the LA Kings, so they're going to be in desperation mode in this one. Jakub Fowler gets a start for the Canadiens, while UC Saros gets a nod for the Predators. No other changes to the lineup for the Canadiens, meaning Alexandre Texier is still day-to-day with a lower body injury and won't be playing in this one. Fowler's record sits at 6-5-2 with a 2.72 goals against average and an .899 save percentage, while UC Saros sports a 26-19-7 record with a 3.11 goals against average and an .895 save percentage. The first period of this game was all about the difference of what a playoff team in the West looks like compared to what a playoff team in the East looks like. Montreal, who's had a myriad of slow starts of late, wasted no time getting involved in this one. Ivan Demidov and his line in particular were on an absolute heater tonight. Demidov and his line mates had multiple looks early and looked totally dialed in and ready to go, as did the rest of the Habs roster in what was one of the strongest first periods they've played all season. All of that early hard work paid off just over halfway through the period when Nick Suzuki intercepted a pass in the neutral zone, tipped the puck onto the stick of Ivan Demidov, and let the dynamic Russian rookie do the rest. Demidov streaked down the right wing, worked into the faceoff circle, and let rip his often underutilized laser beam of a wrist shot to beat UC Saros' blocker side and give the Canadiens a 1-0 lead. A great goal that really showed off some of the best features of Ivan Demidov's skill set as he's continuing to heat up going down the stretch in this season. Jakub Fowler was rarely tested in the first period as the Canadiens outshot Nashville 9-3, but Fowler did exactly what he needed to as the Habs skaters carried the team throughout the period. The remainder of the period was quite a low event affair, with the highlight coming at the end of the period when Jakub Fowler got totally run over by Luke Evangelista in the dying seconds. It put the Canadiens on a man advantage headed into the second period after the Habs were the much stronger team in the first. A welcome reprieve from the narrative of recent first periods for the Canadiens, and a drastic improvement overall. The mission for the team now, extend that great play, extend that lead headed into the second period. So Montreal started the second period with 1 minute and 45 seconds to work with on the man advantage. Yuri Slafkovsky had a pair of opportunities right at the doorstep, but UC Saros was equal to the task and kept it out of the net. The second line went right back to work though and continued with their tenacious play. Saros had a bit of difficulty handling an Alex Newhook shot, and while the Predators were busy gawking at the puck, Newhook followed his shot, scooped up a bouncing puck, slid the puck back out in front to Kapanen, who was able to deposit it into the back of the net and double the Canadiens' advantage. That's 2 goals for the Demidov line as they continued to impress in this one. It was then up to Jakub Fowler to make his mark on the game as the Preds sensed the urgency of the situation in being down 2 to a team that had been playing very well up until that point. The Predators began to put shots towards the net, and even if they weren't the most dangerous of looks, they were still getting on target. That plan worked for the Predators as Jake Evans came in late after a scrum and was awarded a penalty for roughing, so the Preds went to the man advantage. Sometimes you've got to be good to be lucky, and you've got to be lucky to be good. Nashville rings one off of the post and out just as the penalty was about to expire, and the Habs managed to escape the penalty kill unscathed. The refs made it abundantly clear in this one they weren't going to let any after whistle tomfoolery go, as Jaden Struble then found himself on the wrong end of a roughing penalty, gifting the Preds their second consecutive look with the man advantage. The Montreal Canadiens survived another penalty kill, but they were quickly seeing their shot advantage evaporate as the Preds appeared to be clawing their way back into this one. The Habs finally answered back with some offense of their own. Cole Caulfield ripped one off of the crossbar, but he did not let that miss deter him. Minutes later, he gets another look on a sweet steal in the offensive zone. Suzuki tips it onto Caulfield, who finds the opening on Saros and scores his 45th of the season. It was Saturday night. Did you really think Caulfield wasn't going to score in this one? Montreal's opportunistic scoring comes through once again, and the Habs go up by a score of 3-0. The Kapanen, Demidov, and Newhook line continued their dominant play, And they completed the trifecta, a hat trick for the line, as Alex Newhook was able to rip one home to join his line mates as goal scorers in this game, giving the Canadiens a 4-0 advantage. Ivan Demidov uncorked another terrific shot. This time it hit the iron, but he was alert, found the rebound, spied his open teammate across the ice, set him up for another goal, and extended the Habs lead. A terrific game for this trio as they really put an exclamation point on the second period for the Canadiens. Ivan Demidov in particular looked absolutely electric all throughout this one, and as the second period drew to a close, you got the sense that the Canadiens were running away with this one, and there wasn't a thing that Nashville could do about it. A pair of late offsetting roughing penalties resulted in some 4-on-4 action. Nick Suzuki actually had a look right as time expired, but the Canadiens went into the second intermission in complete control of this game. Now, you and I all knew what the result of this one was going to be, and it felt like both the Predators and Canadiens knew exactly what the result of this one was going to be. The Predators hardly put up a fight in the third period. That's not to say that they completely gave up on this one, but they just didn't have anything in their game that made you worry that the Canadiens weren't going to come away with a victory in this one. It felt like the Predators were just going through the motions and playing this one out. Jakub Fowler looked sharp throughout the game, and it was very refreshing to see the Canadiens getting a solid performance from their backup goaltender and not having to worry about literally any shot going in as they had been all season when Sam Montembeault was in net. As time wound down, you were starting to think of Fowler and the S word, but then the puck took a wild bounce off the boards. Fowler had no idea where the puck was. It came right out in front of him when he was totally unprepared, and Zachary Lheureux was the beneficiary of the bounce. He potted a goal against his hometown team. Horrible luck for Fowler. It spoiled his shutout bid, but that was about all that it did. The Canadiens cruised to a 4-1 victory, one of their best, most complete performances of the year. Lheureux ended up losing his lid a few moments later as he thought he got caught with an elbow by Noah Dobson, and you be the judge on this one. Lheureux ends up going off, gets himself tossed from the game, so the Predators spent the final 2 minutes of the game shorthanded. They didn't even have a chance to pull their goalie and try for the miracle comeback. And Montreal makes it out of this road game with a win in convincing fashion and 2 critical points in the standings. All in all, one of the best games the Canadiens played all season, in particular on the road. This was just a phenomenal effort for the entire team. I was very happy with the way they played. So we move on from Saturday and on to Sunday, a rematch of last week's contest against the Hurricanes, but this time in Carolina. Jakub Dobes gets the nod for the Habs yet again, and Freddie Andersen gets another look for the Hurricanes. A win in this one would be a huge accomplishment for the Canadiens and almost cement the Canadiens' position among the top 3 teams in the Atlantic. Interestingly, in this one, Josh Anderson was out of the lineup, so Arber Xhekaj found himself getting a look at forward. I've actually wanted the Canadiens to try this for a long time, and I was very curious to see how Arber Xhekaj looked up front in this one. Jakub Dobes, 24-8-4 with a .283 goals against average and an .898 save percentage, while Freddie Andersen, 13-12-5 with a 3.15 goals against average and an .871 save percentage. Montreal definitely has the matchup advantage in nets. Now this is another game against the Hurricanes and another slow start for the Habs. The shots come early and often, with Dobes making 3 saves in the first 90 seconds of this one. Even Lane Hudson ended up having to make a few saves, getting in the way and blocking multiple shots. Arber Xhekaj really looked like he was trying to be noticed early, as he was throwing hits whenever he was on the ice, but all things considered, this was not a very convincing start for the Canadiens, and they predictably got into early penalty trouble as a result. A hooking penalty ended up being called on Caden Gooley. It sent the Canes to the power play for the first time, and this was another game where it seemed like the only Hab to show up ready for the first period was Jakub Dobes. Dobes couldn't do it all himself though, as the Canadiens' bottom 10 penalty kill folded like a cheap suit, leaving Andrei Svechnikov all alone to uncork a slap shot that found the top corner over Dobes' shoulder. It really looked like the teams were just copying and pasting their last meeting, and while I realized that the last time these two teams met, it ended up working out for the Canadiens, giving up first period leads to the Eastern Conference's best team is likely not the brightest of ideas. Never mind shots on goal, the Habs didn't even attempt a shot in the first 10 minutes of this one. Pucks seemed to be bouncing over sticks and nothing appeared to be flowing for the Canadiens. The first shot the Canadiens got came with 8 minutes and 11 seconds remaining in the period, when Zachary Bolduc got a decent looking backhander on target, but Carolina continued laying it on thick. Hudson turned one over at the offensive blue line, left Struble to defend a 2-on-1, not his strength. It turned into a partial breakaway for Carolina, and Dobes got just enough of it to keep it out of the net. But the shot total was getting embarrassing, with the Hurricanes outshooting the Habs 12-1 through 15 minutes. Montreal caught a break when a careless cross-check to the face of Caden Gooley put the Habs on the man advantage with a chance to draw even in a game where they've done next to nothing offensively. Rob Brindamore had his usual temper tantrum even though the penalty was completely merited, and the Habs went to the power play. The first unit had one sniff, but Lane Hudson fanned on one beside the net. It didn't end up going in. Then Noah Dobson took nearly a half dozen shots on target in quick succession. None of them were able to beat Anderson, and Montreal didn't manage to score, but they at least looked competent for the first time in the game, and you're hoping that they can build off of that. The good news for the Canadiens as they went into the first intermission was that they were only down by a goal and that any one shot could turn this game on its head. But my goodness, what an atrocious period by the Habs. I understand that they're on the second half of a back-to-back, they're coming off travel, but they have to do better than that. What's worse, Jakub Dobes appeared to tweak something in his leg at the very end of the period, so Habs fans everywhere were collectively holding their breath to see which goalie was going to come out to play for the team in the second period. Now, Jakub Dobes did come out to start the second period, and Habs fans could breathe a sigh of relief. The second period, though, began much the same way as the first. Montreal looked completely flat, and they were totally at the mercy of the Hurricanes' forecheck. Everything was difficult for Montreal. They struggled to even maintain possession of the puck. The only positive you could point to in this one was that the Canadiens were at least hanging around. And hanging around was all they needed to do. After yet another save by Jakub Dobes, the Canadiens came rushing down the ice. Hudson fired a long pass to Caulfield. Caulfield and Nick Suzuki came bearing down on Freddie Anderson. With Caulfield in possession, everyone was thinking shot. Caulfield realized that, flipped the pass over to Suzuki. He made no mistake about it and buried one by Freddie Anderson to somehow draw the Canadiens even in this one. The historic offensive seasons of Hudson, Caulfield, and Suzuki continued, and this was really nearly an identical game to the matchup in Montreal 5 days ago. Jakub Dobes really was incredible in this one. Without him, the Canadiens could easily have been down 5 or 6-1 halfway through the game, and it wasn't just quantity by the Hurricanes. Their chances were of the highest quality. The Habs were gifted a power play when the Hurricanes were caught with too many men on the ice, so the team being outshot 22-8 got a chance to take the lead. The first unit had the chances, including a mad scramble in front of Anderson in which the Danish netminder was just barely able to keep the puck out with his pad, but the Habs just weren't able to capitalize. Basically, anytime the Canadiens weren't on the power play, this game was all about Jakub Dobes. The poor guy was being absolutely peppered with shots, and they were not just run-of-the-mill shots from distance, these were high-quality looks. Out of nowhere, though, Cole Caulfield found just a little bit of space down the right wing, and while it wasn't a Saturday night, it was still the weekend. The kid ripped a wrist shot by Freddie Anderson for his 46th goal of the season, his 25th goal in his last 25 games. 0 empty netters all season. Every single one of his goals has been against a goaltender. Just crazy. And out of nowhere, the Canadiens find themselves in the lead. Montreal then drew a tripping penalty on the Canes with just 15 seconds to go, so it's a third chance for the Canadiens on the man advantage. Surely they're just going to skate this one into the intermission up by a goal. Nope. Right away, the Canadiens gain possession after the faceoff. Demidov works the puck down low to Slafkovsky. He rips the puck out front to Suzuki, who gets not one but 2 whacks at it and is able to hammer it by Anderson, puts Montreal up 3-1. The similarities to last week continue. Wildly outshot, wildly outchanced, and somehow ahead through 2 periods. A totally insane performance by the Canadiens. Definitely not a recipe for success, but somehow it was working through 40. Now they have to settle down and fight through the last 20 minutes to steal the 2 points that they have within their grasp. And in the third, Montreal started another period very poorly. Suzuki got called for a questionable trip, so it put Carolina on an early power play with a chance to get right back within 1 with a ton of time to go. Montreal's penalty kill stepped up though, allowing only a single shot on goal and really preventing the Canes from generating any momentum early in the period. Now Carolina continued to push, and they came within inches of scoring as Sebastian Aho rang one directly off the post. That miss was doubly harmful for the Hurricanes as they allowed a 2-on-1 the other way to Caulfield and Suzuki, and that in turn resulted in a hooking penalty on Andrei Svechnikov. But for some baffling reason, Marty St. Louis decided to only give the first unit 45 seconds on the power play. The second unit did absolutely nothing offensively and even ended up giving a brutal shorthanded 2-on-1. Jakub Dobes saved the day again, came up with another great save, and kept Montreal ahead by 2. Caulfield then had a pair of sniffs at his 47th of the year, but Freddie Anderson made 2 of his very rare saves in this one. And the issues behind the Canadiens bench continued as they took a bench minor for too many men with 6 minutes to go, handing the Canes another glorious chance to cut the deficit to 1. Montreal's penalty kill absolutely sold out though, sacrificing the body with a few massive shot blocks as they killed this one off without even allowing a shot on goal. The desperation level rose and rose for the Hurricanes, so they pulled the goaltender with 3 minutes to go, down by 2, and this is where the Habs put on a defensive clinic in the final 3 minutes. Carolina couldn't even get possession of the puck in the Canadian zone, and on the rare occasions that they did, their shots were blocked, their passes were cut off, and everything they attempted was broken up and the puck was dumped down the ice. What a finish 5-on-6 by the Canadiens, essentially playing 5 straight minutes shorthanded without allowing a single threatening shot. That is the kind of defensive finish you need to reward the type of performance that Jakub Dobes gave the team. A massive win, their 5th in a row in regulation, a feat they somehow hadn't accomplished since 2017. 9 years? Are you kidding me? It's their 25th comeback win of the year, a new team record. Incredible. It definitely wasn't pretty, but they got the job done somehow. A perfect weekend for the Canadiens in terms of results. Maybe the execution wasn't quite there in the Carolina game, but 4 points out of 4 on the road, we'll take it. Anyway, you guys, that's going to be it for me. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you made it to the end of the video, please consider giving us a like and a subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Check out the link to the Discord server in the comment section down below. And have a great night, guys.